Let us now move on to the next verse. This is one of the most important verses of the entire Gita, as it gives the definition of Sat, that is, reality. Na sato vidyate bhavo, na abhavo vidyate satah, ubhayorapi drashtantah, vanyostattvadarshibhi. That which is asat, not real, that is mithya, does not come into being. That which is sat does not cease to be. The nature of both is indeed known by the wise. We have seen this verse before, but briefly, now we will see it in more depth. It says, that which is Sat does not cease to be. It does not ever cease to exist. It always exists. And that which is not real, that which is not Sat, never comes into being. It never comes into existence. It may appear to be there, but it has no existence of its own. It has no being of its own. Please note that the word asat here does not mean unreal. It should rather be translated as something which is not sat, not real. There's a fine difference between these two ideas. What we are talking about is something in between real and unreal. It is neither completely real like Satya, nor is it completely unreal like a hare's horn, a rabbit's horn, which is completely unreal. It never even appears in our experience, so it is completely unreal. What we are talking about here by the word asat is something in between these two, and that is mithya. It appears to be there, but actually it has no existence of its own. This entire universe is of this category. The easiest way to understand these ideas is through the example of the clay pot which I gave you in the intro videos. Let us see it again. Suppose I show you this object and ask you, what is it? You may say that it's an earthen pot or a clay pot. However, I can say that it is not pot, but only clay. If you think it's pot, then okay, you can take the pot and I will keep the clay. So you will tell me that that's not possible. How can I take the pot and not the clay? The pot cannot be without the clay. Right? So the pot cannot be without the clay. The pot cannot exist without the clay. Which means pot has no independent existence of its own. There is no entity called pot. There is no independent entity called pot. Pot is just a name for the shape or the form in which clay is molded. So pot is not any object per se, but only this shape. There is no object called pot. There never was and there never will be. So we can say pot never came into being. Pot never came into existence. Pot is mithya. And the clay? Clay has always been there and it will always be there. Clay was when the shape was not there. Clay is when the shape is, and clay will be when the shape is broken. So clay is eternal. If you touch this object, you will be touching clay. If you smell it, you will smell the sweet earthen smell of clay. Right? So this object is nothing but clay. So in this example, we can say that clay is the Satyam. It exists. It has independent existence. It does not need pot to exist, does it? Clay does not need pot to exist. Whereas pot needs the clay to exist. Pot is dependent upon clay for its existence. Pot has its being in clay. So pot is mithya. Mithya means dependent existence. It does not mean complete unreality. It only means dependent existence. The word for complete unreality is tuchham. Tuchham. As I gave you the example of a rabbit's horn. So something like that never even appears in our experience. So it is completely unreal. Mithya is something which appears in our experience, but it has no existence of its own. So Satyam and Mithya, right? Satyam is independent existence, Mithya is dependent existence. Satyam is always existing. It is eternal. Whereas Mithya, it never has any existence of its own. Its existence is in Satyam. Only the Satyam exists, not the Mithya. Mithya only appears to be there. Okay. So now if you read the first line, you will understand what it is saying. Na asato vidyate bhavo. The asat, mithya, never comes into being. Na abhavo vidyate satah. The Satya never ceases to be. Okay? Now, if we apply this understanding to the entire universe, we find that everything in this universe, all these names and forms, are mithya. Everything. It is vikar matra, as Shankara says. It is only forms and names. Vikar means form, a change, a form. Nothing has existence of its own. It all has its being in. What does it all has its being in? Pure consciousness. So consciousness is the only Satya. Consciousness is the only thing that exists, and that will ever exist. The universe and everything in it just appears to be there. It never came into existence. It never came into existence, just like the pot never came into existence. So Arjun, all these people, Bhishma, Drona, Duryodhana, and this entire battle is a mere appearance. Don't take it to be the absolute reality. This is what Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna. Shankaracharya explains this verse in great detail. He writes that all the sensations of pleasure and pain that are deluding Arjuna are mithya, and their cause, that is this battle, is also mithya. It is all a mere appearance. So Arjuna need not get so overwhelmed by it all. What does he need to do? Since he is himself not enlightened about the reality right now, what he can do is he can take refuge in this knowledge which the wise people have, the Jnanis, the Tattvadarshis. He can take refuge in their knowledge and act accordingly. The word used for a wise person is Tattvadarshi. And Shankara explains it in a very interesting manner. The word Tattva is from Tat, which means that. That or Tat represents that reality, that absolute reality, pure consciousness. The Upanishads use this word Tat a lot to indicate that ultimate truth. So a Tattvadarshi is one who knows that truth. Now, since we are talking about that reality, let us spend some time and understand it in more depth. As we said, it is independent. It needs nothing else to be. This is the most fundamental thing that we should remember about Satyam, reality. Since it is independent, it never ceases to be. It always is. It is eternal. The word for eternal in Sanskrit is Nitya, Shashvat, Sanatan. These are the words used by the Gita to indicate that reality. If it is eternal, then it can never undergo any change. The moment something changes, it ceases to be what it was. Therefore, that reality must necessarily be unchanging. Avyay. The word is avyay. Or nirvikar. Nirvikar. Vikar means change. Nirvikar. Since it is eternal, it is limitless. It is not limited by time or space. It does not exist in any particular time or space. It is the very truth of time and space. Time and space are mithya. They are dependent upon the eternal consciousness for their existence. We saw this in the intro videos, right? So it is limitless, anant, anadi, beginningless, endless. And it has no form. It is formless, nirakar. Why is it formless? If it had any specific form, then it would be limited to that form only. Then it couldn't be the truth of all forms. For example, clay is formless in a way, and that is why it can take the forms of pot, pan, bowl, and any form. If it had any specific form, then could it take any other form? No, right? So the Satyam, that pure consciousness, has to be formless, nirakar. And it is nirguna. It has no attributes. Guna means attribute. So it has no attributes either. If it had any specific attribute, then it could not be the truth of any other attribute. So if it was blue, then it could not have been the truth of anything which was not blue. If it was round, then it could not be the truth of something which is not round. So this ultimate reality is necessarily nirgun and nirakar. You see, these are the words which the Gita and the Upanishads use to indicate that reality. There is no other way to tell you about that reality. So you should understand these words very, very clearly. We will come across these words a lot in the next few verses. Avinashi tu tad vidhi yena sarvam idam tatam vinasham avyayasyasya na kaschit kartum arhati. But know that to be indestructible, by which all this is pervaded. None can bring about the destruction of this immutable. Krishna says that reality, that Satyam, is avinashi. It is indestructible. We see in this world everything is destructible. Everything has a beginning and an end, right? The body-mind complex of an individual dies. Plants, animals, and everything else in nature also dies. Even the sun and planets have a lifespan. They have a limited lifespan. They too are destructible. The entire universe goes through cycles of origin and destruction. We only see destructible objects around us. And Krishna is saying that Satyam, that reality, is that which never ceases to be, which never ceases to exist. It is indestructible. What is it? And where is it? Krishna says it is right here. It is everywhere. Why? Because everything has its being in that reality. It is the truth of everything. Remember the clay pot example always. Pot is destructible, but its truth, which is clay, it does not get destroyed by the coming and going of pot. So if you want to find the truth of the pot, where do you have to look? Right at the pot. That's where the clay is. Similarly, the indestructible truth is right here, everywhere. We say, Kan Kan mein Bhagwan hai. There is God in every particle of the universe. We say that. What does it mean? This is what it means. That reality, which is Brahma, God, is all-pervasive. It is the truth of it all. Sarvam idam tatam. It pervades everything. The word tatam means the essential truth. That pure consciousness is the indestructible, eternal reality which is the truth of it all. Okay? Just as all the various pots and pans in the potter shop have their being in clay, similarly all of this universe has its being in the pure consciousness. And he says, none can bring about the destruction of this immutable. Vinasham avyaye asya na kaschit kartum arhati. Avyaye means that which does not change, unchanging. That reality, because it is unchanging, eternal, independent, it cannot be destroyed by anyone. How can anyone destroy it? It is the truth of everything. Can the pot destroy the clay? It cannot. It is made of clay. Right? Then Krishna continues, Antavant ime deha nityasya uktah sharirinaha anashino aprameyasya tasmad yuddhasva bharata. These bodies are destructible. That truth which pervades the bodies is everlasting, indestructible, and unobjectifiable. Therefore, without being delusioned by the appearances, fight, my dear Arjuna, fight. Antavanta ime deha. These bodies are destructible, they are antavant. And this is very evident to us. By body, he means all objects of the universe, which are limited by time and space. All of them are destructible. And what is not destructible is that which pervades it all. The word used here is shariri. It's a figurative way of, referring to that reality which pervades all bodies. And then Krishna uses the word aprameya in the second line. Aprameya. This is a very important word to understand. Aprameya. Prama means knowledge. Prameya means an object of knowledge. For example, if you see the computer in front of you and know it to be a computer, then it is the object of your knowledge. It is prameya. Krishna is saying that that reality, that Atma or Brahma, it is not an object of knowledge. It is aprameya. And if you think about it, it is quite logical to say this. Because if Atma is the truth of everything, then it is the truth of various means that we use to know various objects. We use our eyes, ears, etc. to know various objects. But Atma is the very truth of eyes and ears. So how can eyes and ears objectify it? They cannot. Nor can the mind objectify it, because it is the truth of the mind also. So the question arises, how do we know about it? How do we know about it? The means of knowing Atma is the words of Shruti. Shruti means that which is heard. The words of the Vedas, including the Upanishads, is the Shruti. The Upanishads are part of the Vedas. Vedas have 4 sections: Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka and Upanishad. The concluding section of the Veda is the Upanishad. And this entire Veda, comprising of all these 4 sections, is the Shruti. It is a revealed scripture, as they say. It was received by the rishis from Ishvara directly. It was, so to say, heard by them, and that is why it is called Shruti. And apart from the Veda, the Gita is also given the status of Shruti because it was revealed by Krishna himself, who is an incarnation of Ishvara. The words of Shruti are called Shabda Pramana. The word Pramana means an instrument of knowledge, a means of knowledge. The words of these texts serve as a means of knowing about the Atma, the true self, the absolute reality. Right? That is why they are called Shabda Pramana. Now, a very common question here is, why should we believe what the Shruti says? So the thing is, you don't have to. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to believe anything that the Gita or the Upanishad is saying unless it is acceptable to your logic, to your reasoning. You must have noticed that at every step, proper reasoning has been given. So there is no question of blind faith here. If it was a question of blind faith, then there would be no need for such lengthy texts full of reasoning and Shankara writing such long commentaries with argument upon argument to prove the point. Moreover, I would say that even if you don't accept that this is a revealed knowledge, it doesn't take much away from what these texts have to offer in terms of, their wisdom. The reasoning that the text gives are pretty sound, and you can apply your own reasoning to verify if what these texts are saying is acceptable or not. And you will find that they are quite acceptable. Okay. Now, you should also need to understand the exact role of the Shabda Pramana. The Shabda Pramana, the Shruti, does not tell you that you exist. It does not tell you that your self exists. This is a self-evident fact. You don't need any proof for this fact. The mistake that you make is that you confuse yourself with the body-mind complex. You think that this body-mind complex is the self, and this is the ignorance, avidya. The Shruti's role is to remove this ignorance and make the exact nature of the self known to you. That's all. Shruti tells you that body-mind is antavant. destructible, impermanent, and therefore does not have any independent existence, and therefore it is not the reality. Therefore, it cannot be the self. The self is that which is indestructible, eternal, unchanging, truth of it all. This is how the Shruti removes our ignorance. So please be very clear about the exact role of the Shruti. Krishna ends this verse by saying, Tasmad yudhyasva bharata. Therefore, fight, my dear Arjuna. Arjuna, who had refused to fight because he was so deeply deluded, Krishna has effectively given him a completely new perspective on the situation in the 8 verses that we have just seen. Thus, having removed the obstruction in Arjuna's way to some extent, Krishna says, therefore fight, Arjuna. However, he will continue to speak further. He does not stop here. He has much more to say about that absolute reality, and we will see that in the next videos.